All right, we're going live there, and then we're gonna record here. All right, we'll go 3, 2, and 1. Well, welcome back to another episode of Composites Weekly here on day 3 at the IACMI annual meeting here in Knoxville. Pleased to have Scott Lewitt. He's back with Structural Composites. Many of you know Scott's been on the show before. He joined me out at CAMX. And so, Scott, it's great to follow up with you. Good to have you back on, man.
Great to see you in lovely Knoxville, Tennessee.
That's right. So you've been here since Monday or early part of the week?
We came in Tuesday. Of course, got hit by all those storms.
Oh, yeah. Came through.
Could have drove it quicker.
So how are things going? Give us a little update on Structural Composites. We talked back in October. How are things going with the company? I know you said marine market is still humming along. People are buying boats. That's great. The recreational industry is still holding tight.
Yeah, we're kind of fresh back from the American Boating Congress last month up in D.C., and that gives me a good chance to, not just hit the hill and take care of issues, which we should mention a couple of coming up here, but a chance to kind of poll a lot of the manufacturers because they're all there, kind of see what the vibe is in the industry, and so it's not rocket blazing, but we're kind of seeing more of a return to normal. Buildings, supply chains seem more stable.
Sure.
What
is the vibe? You said what's the vibe? I've seen so many forecasts. We're looking at a recession. We might not be looking at a recession. We might be a soft landing, hard landing. I don't think anyone knows.
No, that's it exactly, right? And when does because you're seeing it. A good example at the Miami Boat Show. It was in February.
Right.
Another litmus, and really looking at how the prices of boats have changed.
Right.
So now you're really seeing the cumulative effect of all these price increases that businesses have been hit with.
Right.
And I was looking at one boat and just staring at the price of it, and this lady comes up with her husband and goes, "Oh, look, that's $30,000 more than we paid last year for the same boat." So you can kind of see what's happening.
Not to mention the it's higher to finance it. I mean, the interest rates are higher. So
So I think it's unfortunate, but the boating industry, years ago, kind of migrated to the big boats and the big bucks. So when you look now, it's that's where the profit margin is. You can't blame them necessarily.
No.
But as an industry, we have to create the low-cost entry boats to get the people into boating. So I'm looking forward to
just whet their appetite, right?
Yeah, looking forward to working with the industry to create a entry-level, lower-cost boats that they don't need to go 60. If you got a boat that can go 35, 40, and deliver for you, you could tow it on a car versus a truck. If we can get that back into an affordable price, that's what we need as the marine industry to bring in the young people and, expand the demographic from just the people with a lot of money who can afford their $250,000 ski boat. So anyway, so that's all good. And then, I think there's one big issue that the industry is working really hard on that probably not many of your listeners are aware of, but the regulatory agencies can sometimes go nuts on us. And so one of the really important parts of National Marine Manufacturers is keeping up with that. And so there's a bill coming out where they're trying to really restrict the offshore waterway, 90 miles offshore from the East Coast all the way down to 10 knots or less for whales. And this rule got pretty far, and there have been 2 whale strikes by recreational boats in 20 years or something. And the industry finally caught it, and rightly talked about the safety impacts. It's not safe sometimes to go at those speeds. And, just give you a feel of some of the other issues that we deal with. I think we got that one in check, hopefully.
That's just one of many, right?
One of many, yeah. It's always and the other big area, and we're pleased now with the infrastructure bill. The waterways and water access is another big area that we need a lot of support on.
So
there's good developments there.
So we're starting to see some of that money enter into the. Okay, good.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, and we're seeing another dimension which is really good for composites is the Army Corps.
Yeah.
Which is a very traditional group, has now put some dedicated resources to looking at moving composites into Army Corps applications.
Oh, that's great.
IACMI had a workshop down with the Army Corps people down in South Florida where we got to look at the locks and the dams, all the things they're using, and we expect some serious engagement with them. So that would be really nice because composites in those applications are going to bring a lot of benefit.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially in longevity and toughness.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe talk about a little bit of your work with CAG, the Composite Applications Group, on some work that you've been doing with them. I know I've talked with Peter. He's been on the show before and talks about some of the projects they've been involved with. But I love that you guys kind of have a partnership there in so many areas.
It's an important one, because what Composite Applications Groups is doing is creating a different type of engagement.
Yeah.
And for us, we're kind of proud that we don't go to purchasing, we go to engineering to try and get into a company. Well,
Sure.
CAG beats us.
Yeah.
All right. So what CAG is doing is they're selling programs to the CEOs and the top level executives, and they do that by having a really robust team of supply chain technology guys. And what's unique about this team of suppliers and technology guys is we're all collaborating with each other.
Yeah.
So we're all willing to modify our projects, morph our technology, work with these other members to meet the need of that OEM.
Yeah.
And we've got a couple of good track record, with Wabash now, Trinity, and there's quite a few more projects in the pipeline we can't talk about yet, but they'll go public soon. And, so the model's now time proven, and it's important because as these OEMs are doing things, it's more than just the design and this. It's the whole supply chain, the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And supply chain is going to become more and more of a consideration because we're starting to deploy composites into bigger markets. I'm going to talk about Wabash. They do 60,000 semi-trailers a year. We're targeting composites into those applications. If every one of those 60,000 trailers had composites that were all composite chassis, for example. That represents about the size of the material use of the marine composites market for the entire USA. All right, so it just kind of puts a thing on what has to happen, and so we're also really starting to look at what supply chain can supply chain feed it, because the last thing that we want to have happen is the supply chain can't do it, and then prices are going up, and we actually knock our own metrics out. And
right.
You see what I mean?
But that is improving, right? I mean, the supply chains
improving, but prices are up.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And prices have gone up. They're quick to go up, and they're slow to go down. Right.
Sure.
And they're still high. And what you get out of a lot of suppliers now is like, well, that's the price, and I got plenty of other people who want it. If you don't, happy to sell it to you. I'm not going to. But if you don't want it, I got other people. Right. So that demand change or supply change, and I think some of the challenges, and it would probably be worth digging in a little bit, is some of these things require really big capital investments that require like ISO crackers and these things that are multi-billion-dollar feedstocks that I'm not tremendously aware of. I know they exist. That somebody's got to start thinking about.
Absolutely.
Making sure we have that infrastructure there. We're going to stall.
Does the, I know it's got to be, it's always been, for the most part, supply and demand, availability. And, I wonder in terms of supply, I still hear a lot in terms of, materials coming over from overseas. There's still an issue with not only, I guess, with the cargo being able to, utilize those, but I mean, also getting the people, workers that are able to, take them off the boats, and actually the drivers to get them here. So it's so many.
So cost of shipping.
So cost of shipping right now is just it's amazing.
Yeah, so you're in. I think you're in a just a really dynamic situation.
Sure.
At the same time, there's a giant onshoring move to as a reaction to current events.
Right.
And the CHIPS Act's a good example.
Yeah.
you see a lot of suppliers, you see the government taking really strong action now.
Sure.
So if you start looking at your government procurements, you're going to see a lot of language about buying stuff from China and other things. So they're going to have impacts on it.
Yeah.
And it's hard to predict what's going to be the end game, but it can make it challenging. So for those of us getting some materials from overseas, making sure that there's some U.S. inventory here to buffer, and I think having U.S. second sources, becomes very important also. So you're not just single source.
I do want to mention the FRP bridge. Here in this area, right?
So this is we were really fortunate with Composite Application Group and IACMI and University of Tennessee and really a team of suppliers. We put this bridge in a poor county, Morgan County, a poor community in Tennessee. And the bridge,
that's up not far. That's outside of Oak Ridge, right?
Or it's just kind of. It's like an hour and a half from here.
Okay.
Right out in the countryside, real pretty area, it all comes down to individuals. So we were very fortunate that the town management really embraced this technology. They were willing to go forward with it, be our partner.
Right.
We installed the bridge at no cost.
Yeah.
So, but they chipped in. They did a lot of help and support.
Sure.
Happy to update. The bridge is in 2 years now, and if you go to compositebridge.org, University of Tennessee's been funded.
Okay.
They've got a website. It's got a 24-hour camera feed.
Oh, wow.
It's got fiber optic sensors in the bridge. Okay, so one thing that's really cool, and the DOT, the federal DOT, is really loving this, because when we talk about composite bridges, it's like, well, that's great. Where's the data?
Yeah.
Okay, so this bridge is collecting data 24/7. Every vehicle that goes over it, it triggers it, it measures it. So it's got fiber optic sensors all embedded in it, and it was for us very important, because we had been qualified through testing programs funded by the DOT, but we weren't fielded.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to get funding to get fielded without being fielded. So we use that.
And then they want to know not only the data, but for how long, right? I mean, the
longer the better. But from that we can make predictions, because we know the materials properties. We can tell, is it changing?
Right.
Are we wearing it out? And so by doing that project, it created a huge amount of attention in Tennessee. We got a lot of political support.
That's great.
And now all of a sudden, luckily, the infrastructure bill passed. Right.
Yeah.
And the county that installed the bridge has now requested 6 more under the RISE grant, and we're waiting to see if we get funded.
Sure.
All right. So what's interesting about this story is that bridge is a highway bridge deck. Okay. The bridge is made for 100-year service life at highway loads, and we put it in the Royal Bridge because, well, we had to qualify somehow, and it's low risk. You can see the bridge is only 3 feet high. All right. And it's got everything we need. It's got an on-ramp, an off-ramp, and a joint. It's 2 modules.
Sure.
And so we thought, okay, great, we're going to improve our highway bridge deck, and we're going to go out and do highways.
Yeah.
What we found is the demand for rural bridges is tremendous. It's
right.
everywhere. It's across the country.
Because they're probably old, for the most part, they're old. They haven't been maintained.
And they're relatively expensive to redo.
Yeah.
All right, because of the amount of work you got to do for that small bridge. And so the composites, once we had the underlayment set, it took about 2 hours to put the deck on. So it was really fast. And what it woke us up to is like, hey, let's go after all these rural bridges because they want them.
Right.
They're screaming for them. We got guys like in Morgan County, Joe Millier saw yesterday speaking, who love it. And then we'll build the confidence we need to eventually get to highway decks.
How much of, I guess, from the infrastructure bill, how much of that money would be allocated for some of these local municipalities for these types of?
Yeah, so when they do the funding, you'll find these funding opportunities come out of DOT, and the eligible entity is the first thing you want to look at. Who can apply? Okay. And a lot of times it's just that. It's the local governments and this and that. And when you get into the poor communities, they put them into special buckets that they don't need cost share. They don't need this. They recognize the predicament rural communities are in. So they're actually in a nice spot to get funding. Also, the current administration there's a lot of move to serve underserved communities. You know, there's
Yeah.
so many things that the underserved communities could save money on, but they can't afford it.
Right.
You know, solar on your house is a wonderful example, right?
Yeah.
It makes sense, but if you can't afford to put it in, you can't afford to save money.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And I think we have a lot of these chicken egg problems.
Sure. Yeah.
And,
Where do you start? Exactly.
Yeah, and so this hits that button too, serving communities. And, you know, you look at that little bridge, and you know, school buses are going over these bridges. And when you go look at, we looked at like 15, 20 bridges, and some of them were just scary. You know, you're not going to fall far, but falling 6 or 8 feet could do. You know,
Oh, sure.
could
Yeah.
cause damage. And so, you know, we think it's a good sweet spot, and we're eager to see how the government reacts to our grant.
What is the website again that listeners can find?
At UT, it's www.compositebridge.org.
Okay. All right.
Compositebridge.
Compositebridge.
Yeah. And that's coming out of UT.
Yes.
And you know, what we've done is we've put in this proposal to go ahead and instrument these bridges the same way we did this,
Okay.
just to go ahead and build more confidence.
Okay.
So you know, we hope that the DOT recognizes that funding's worth it, because it costs more to put that in.
Sure.
But you know, now we would have 6, 7 bridges, structural health monitoring built in, and I think, you know, it'll help gain confidence in
Sure.
the materials.
What do you see? I mean, in terms of the approval, the length of time on the DOT approving something like that?
Yeah, we should really be hearing in the next 3 to 4 months.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
Good.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, too, the bridge project has spurred another technology project, and it's in rail market. And so,
okay.
Yeah, so we have there's a grant called the CRISI, Consolidated Rail Infrastructure Grant. Here we teamed with the University of Tennessee as the lead.
Right.
And we brought this exact same team together that put the bridge in, and we're taking the bridge technology and we're morphing it into rail crossings. You know, rail crossings are just what you drive over with your car.
Sure. Yeah.
They cause a lot of damage to cars. The maintenance is an issue. They don't let you get to the tracks to maintain them because they're really hard to get on and off. So we're looking at a new solution. And we've got local rail here, Gulf and Ohio Rail, teamed up with us. He's got rail crossings. We've got the bridge technology, and we've asked for research funding out of CRISI.
That's fantastic.
Forget it. We should hear with that within the next few months too.
Yeah, because that's another aging issue or problem
It's
as
huge.
well.
And you know, rail. I'm doing a lot in rail now. You know, Trinity Rail has become one of our partners, and we have several projects going in rail. One called the 559 Farm Train, and that's with Elaine Colati, who's an undercover billionaire season 2.
Okay.
And we're looking at moving food on rail.
Right.
So when you look at rail, it's really underutilized for food movement. So we can move a ton of cargo 800 miles on a gallon of diesel.
Okay.
So, you know, if we can create the system that allows goods to move on a predictable pattern, rail can become a big part of our solution. And part of our challenges we're all facing with costs is the cost of shipping.
Yeah.
Part of the cost of shipping that's gone up is the regulatory environment has now made it where the drivers and the timeouts are happening. So we're trying to create a new vision of an ecosystem where the semi-trailer, the first mile is rail, then the final mile moves to semi-trailers. So instead of sending semi-trailers across the country, can we send them on rail, and then semi-trailers move out?
That makes sense.
Different distribution model.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Scott, this has been so interesting. I always enjoy having you come on and spend some time, and hopefully we can catch back up at CAMX in a few months. It's already here, right? I mean, it's like it's moving fast. So
hopefully by then we'll have. Let's say by CAMX I'll be able to say if we're smiling or crying that we didn't win.
Were you up at the infrastructure up in D.C. I guess a couple of months ago?
No, I missed that one.
Okay.
But Peter was up there for that.
Oh, okay,
so
great.
It worked out good. And,
yeah.
I also think it's worth just mentioning, how well the IACMI group has matured.
Absolutely.
Okay, so having been in it for a little bit, now we're deep in it. We're full members.
Sure.
Engaged in projects, with our bridges and everything. This meeting really hit every button.
Yeah.
So they've done a great job. We've got 350 the industry's players here,
Great turnout.
and it's a great turnout.
I heard that was Wabash. Did they have some people here from?
Yeah, they should have somebody here.
Okay.
And I
That's
know they're
great.
coming to our meetings tomorrow.
Very good. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Scott, always a pleasure to catch up, and enjoy the rest of the time. Have a safe trip back, and look forward to obviously catching up with you in Atlanta here in 4 or 5 months.
Yeah,
So
hopefully we'll have some exciting for you.
absolutely.
We're working on it.
Thanks again.
Okay, thank